Hello, good evening and welcome to Business Life. Coming up, Bank of Ghana appoints former head of financial stability, Dr. Joseph Franz, as advisor to management of Universal Merchant Bank. We'll hear from a banking consultant. Also in this bulletin, we'll get to hear from Ghana Cocoa Board on why Ghana is losing out on a historic cocoa market price as the commodity nears $10,000 a ton as at this morning. Plus, government seeks $100 million private capital to complete Sagleme housing project as it promises fairness in selection of investors. We have details of these and many others arranged for you this day. Thanks so much for your time. I am Pius Kojo Baka. We can now take a look at our stories. And Cocoa Board has been failing to cash in on huge jump in the price of cocoa on the international market for more than a month as a result of the shortfall in production of the beans. Now, the price of cocoa has gone beyond $1,000 per ton, of about $2 an ounce. Now, this, of course, is affecting the production levels of the commodity. However, the chief executive of Cocoa Board, Joseph Edu, tells Joy Business there has been a persistent problem of swollen shoot disease which has pushed cocoa production to fall. He's been speaking to my colleague Eben Sabute.
Problem. Systemic problem had to do with cocoa swollen shoot viral disease. That is the main driver of the decrease of production of cocoa in Ghana. It's a problem that we faced, and at the time we came to office, it was about to explode. Many trees, were dying. Most of the farms were in asymptomatic situation. It's a virus, just like we have the spread of virus, and then you see people in asymptomatic situation. The same thing was happening to the cocoa trees. And old farms are more vulnerable, just like virus, old people, are vulnerable. The same thing is affecting the cocoa destiny. And it's since time immemorial, scientists have done all they could, more than 80 years in Ghana, and they haven't found any remedy, that is medicine for that. And the only solution is to cut the trees, destroy the stumps, and then replace them, which is also difficult for farmers to do it on their own. I always say that no farmer can do that because for a farmer to have, let's say, 10 acres of cocoa farm, you might have spent about 15, 20 years to develop that. People who come from cocoa growing areas, they know that it takes quite, life investment, time to have the cocoa farm. Not less than 10 to, not 15 to 20 years to have 10 acres. But when the disease strikes, you have to cut everything. So if you have 10 acres, you have to cut all the 10 acres and replant in 1 year. Imagine 15 years, 20 years life investment. You are called upon to do it within 1 year. No farmer can do that. No farmer can do that without intervention. That's how come the president actually backed us and also led us to go to FDB to secure funding. And we have made a lot of progress in the field. Very soon we'll be taking you there to go and see what is happening. Yes, we've rehabilitated, we call it rehabilitation. We've cut a lot of trees and then replanted them, and they've started fruiting. That gives us hope.
Now, let's touch on our big story we have followed up for you. The Bank of Ghana has appointed its former head of financial stability, Dr. Joseph Franz, as advisor to management of Universal Merchant Bank, Ghana. The Bank of Ghana, in a statement, said the advisor is expected to help monitor UMB's recapitalization efforts and implementation of governance reforms agreed with the Bank of Ghana. The central bank adds that an advisor, unlike official administrator, does not take over the powers, responsibilities, and duties of the bank's shareholders, directors, or management. We've got to make sense out of this. Let's get on to Zoom and engage the thoughts of banking consultant Dr. Richmond Etuahene for some analysis. I'm told he's on phone. Thanks so much, sir, for your time and agreeing to speak to us. Now, should we be worried about this action taken by the Bank of Ghana, or really is much ado about nothing?
I don't think there is cause for concern at all. There's no cause for concern.
All right. So having the regulator step in, does that really give an indication that there is something not right happening at UMB, for which reason we are seeing this action from the central bank?
After the DDEP, the banks were supposed to have submitted recapitalization plan, and all the banks submitted it. And now Bank of Ghana want to see the speed in which these are being implemented. So if Bank of Ghana find out that it's not going according to plan, the law, BSDI 930-2116, empower them to send somebody there to monitor it closely to ensure that the capitalization plan is actually met. That is one reason why Bank of Ghana has sent somebody there. And the second point, as you said, is about the governance reform structure. I'm sure Bank of Ghana has written to them about the governance, non-compliance of their governance directive. They have sent a directive since 2020 and 2021 that banks are supposed to have certain members on the committee, the various board committee, who is to appoint director, who is the chairman. I'm sure when Bank of Ghana did their examination, they realized that there were lapses in it. So why don't we appoint somebody to go and supervise to ensure that these issues are properly addressed? Apart from that, I don't think there is any serious concern because I believe Bank of Ghana, after the examination, have realized that they need to monitor it closely. And Ghanaians should not get worried about it at all because the act allows them to do what they are doing. It's unlike appointing the administrator. No. It's completely different. This one, he goes there, see the board, see the shareholders, and then report to the governor the progress being made on the capitalization and at the same time the governance reform. So I don't think there is any room for anybody to get panicked. It's a normal process, and I'm sure it is not going to be last. There will be other banks where Bank of Ghana would appoint, especially with the recapitalization plan. Everybody has submitted it. Now it is time to monitor that by 2024 ending, capitalization would have been completed so that we don't have any problem with the industry.
I guess this could have been avoided on the part of UMB, right?
Yes, when you say it could have been avoided, having experienced the DDEP actually affected some banks more, especially the first DDEP was going to make according to the research, almost about 16 banks were going to be insolvent. But somewhere along the line in September 2023, then they tweaked it to let Bank of Ghana have the bigger impact. That is why now the governor is saying that some banks have met the recapitalization because they were not making the huge losses as they were expected. And don't forget, most of the banks are going to have a serious write-back when they publish the accounts in March and April. So that will help them. Merchant Bank could not have avoided it because after the recapitalization, it is very difficult to attract investors into the country. It is very difficult to even attract domestic investors to participate in banking because the option is that who knows what happened. So it is not the Bank of UMB per se. The economic environment or the financial environment which has happened is not assisting with investors to come in. And it will take a little more to bring back the confidence in the sector. That is why it will take Merchant Bank maybe 6 months, 9 months to be able to get people to come and participate in the recapitalization.
I don't know what the central bank can do in that regard, but there are concerns that some banks or more banks are likely to suffer similar fate. I don't know what you are seeing in the crystal ball.
Well, where I sit, I know about 3 or 4 banks. I know 3 or 4 banks will be in the same position. That is why Bank of Ghana has been proactively. What they have done is a proactive strategy to start early so that it doesn't become seismic. When we say seismic, it doesn't affect the sector. As they have started, I'm sure those who are not ready will be also getting ready to ensure that they are following their recapitalization plans. Other than that, they will also appoint advisor to come and sit at your bank, board meeting, shareholders, to monitor it closely to ensure that there is a total compliance of this recapitalization plan, for which you have already submitted to Bank of Ghana, and it has been approved, because it was one of the requirements for the DDEP. If you read the DDEP and the approval by the IMF conditionality, it was one of the conditions that banks who fall short of capital will need to submit plan to Bank of Ghana, for Bank of Ghana to approve, to give you time to fulfill the recapitalization plan.
Yes, I know you said this wouldn't have any significant impact, but really there are indications that this may affect the operations of the bank when we see panic withdrawals and what have you. But how do we manage that?
Well, it's all about, it's about managing problems. You need to make information transparent. One of the key things in banking, there must be transparency of information or highly disclosure. Anything that is going on must be told to management. The board must get to the management, and the management must understand that we have this objective or this task to fulfill. Once there is transparency, once everybody knows where the bank is going, and once you know that the shareholder strategy is to get capitalization, I don't think it brings any panic into the industry. It doesn't have, it doesn't have any implications serious on the staff and the other people. Now, the shareholder have to do whatever it takes to get capital. So now the onus is on the shareholder to be able to get capital. Because if you remember, when the GATT came in, the government decided to set the GATT. But I think it hasn't fulfilled the objectives that way it was originally set up. And therefore, it is also becoming a problem for some of the banks. That is why the government is telling them that get your act ready and make sure you get investors to come in so that they can participate in your capitalization to make the bank more resilient and to make the industry more viable and resilient.
I just say UMB has a lot to do in that regard. Thanks so much, Dr. Richmond Etuahini, for your time and speaking to us on the subject matter. We are grateful. A while longer within the banking space, and some players in rural banking are mounting pressure on government to close down non-performing investment institutions to enable them access their locked-up funds. They say the investments, when released, will help the rural banks meet requirements of the central bank in terms of payment of dividends to shareholders. Board Chairman, Secretary Rural Bank, Dr. Francis Dente, explains many rural banks continue to reel under the present situation. Nanaya Ojima has more. Hello, welcome back to Business Live, and sincere apologies to that technical hitch there. Now, some players in rural banking are mounting pressure on government to close down non-performing investment institutions to enable them access their locked-up funds. Nanaya Ojima reports.
According to the Association of Rural Banks, 460 billion cedis of funds of its members are locked up with some defunct financial institutions. For this reason, liquidity available to the rural banks for their operations have reduced, negatively affecting their operations. The Secretary Rural Bank has about 40 million cedis locked up in two of the defunct financial institutions. The bank has managed to stay profitable despite the challenges, but the Bank of Ghana refused a request to pay dividends to shareholders. Board Chairman Francis Dente is proposing the shutdown of the defunct institutions.
We've always consistently made very, very good profit. However, as we speak, we have a challenge. 40 million of our funds is locked up with NTHC and SIC. In my view, these institutions are not performing, and for that reason, they should be closed down and our money is paid to us now. We have had challenge getting this money to help us operate and then increase our profits and also help our capital adequacy ratio.
At the Secretary Rural Bank's annual general meeting, over 1.3 million cedis was recorded in profit as deposits increased to 151 million cedis. Michael Edu is Chief Executive Officer.
We have strategized to bring the bank in a position where the regulator will give it the approval to pay dividend. And one way is to increase the profitability drive of the bank and also bring in some strategic shareholders who will be able to buy significant shares in the bank. So strategically, we are redesigning our credit system so that we can grant more quality loans to increase the profitability.
Meanwhile, the bank has marked its 40th anniversary with the donation of a borehole facility to the Jamasi community where the headquarters is located.
Government is seeking $100 million of private capital to complete the Saglemi housing project. This was after it completed fresh assessment of the 5,000 affordable housing facility to fast-track completion for public use. Kojo Ponkrumah is Minister for Works and Housing and has been speaking on PM Express Business Edition, which airs tonight at 9 p.m. on this channel.
I think it's always important to recall the history of Saglemi. Saglemi was an affordable housing project for which the government of Ghana contracted a $200 million loan to construct 5,000 units for the benefit of Ghanaians. $196 million was paid and 1,000 units were partially developed. And there's no money to finish it. Because 196 million was paid, only about 1,000 partially developed units were developed. Minister Atachia commissioned the Ghana Institute of Surveyors to do a forensic assessment of the work that had been done there. And it didn't come up to even the 196 million that had been paid. And also, what had been left was uninhabitable. No sewage system. So if somebody on the third floor went to the washroom, it will just come sit downstairs. There's no sewage system to clear it out. No water, no electricity. And 196 million had been paid for it. And therefore, they also did an assessment of what it would take to finish it. And they came to the realization that another $100 million will be required to get Saglemi to a point of usability. And they started the process to request for $100 million for that. The government or cabinet declined that after spending $196 million for 5,000 units and only 1,000 partially developed units were availed, an extra 100 million of taxpayers' money could not be put into it. And so when Minister Asensu Boachi came, he started the exercise based on the cabinet directive to bring in private sector participation to complete Saglemi. So they put together a technical working group that had started some work. When I came in about 4 weeks ago, I've met with the technical working group. Yesterday, I had a site meeting with them at Saglemi to also see if what I'm reading on paper is the same as what is on the ground. And we went there with surveyors and a few other people to at least have a cursory view of what was on the ground. And I'm giving them 5 weeks. That within these 5 weeks, they should issue the international expression of interest to any entity anywhere in the world, and possibly even get on a roadshow to any entity anywhere in the world that this is what we have. 1,000 units partially completed. And it requires about 100 million to bring the Saglemi settlement to a point of usability. And we're looking for private partners who bring their private capital to complement what we have and finish it and join the government of Ghana to operate it together. And I'm hopeful that the technical working group will do a good job. It's a big development. We cannot leave it to rot.
Minister, hasn't government kept too long on this project with all the legalese and all the rest? And now we understand that additional capital is needed again?
We understood that somewhere around 2019, thereabout.
And what stopped government from getting the additional funding to do that?
When Minister Asensu Boachi, when Minister Atachia commissioned the Ghana Institute of Surveyors to do all of the work and determine how much was required to finish it. And since that time, as I've explained to you, there's been work ongoing to now get in the private funding to come on board to assist.
You can watch PM Express Business Edition tonight at 9 p.m. on this great channel. Finally, Ghana can address challenges affecting food security if its policies are driven by data. That's according to a senior research fellow at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Dr. Fred Janku. He said relevant stakeholders would have to deliberate on key issues derailing the growth of the agricultural sector to have it contribute to the economy. He spoke to Joy Business at a program here in Accra.
The Data Repository and Advocacy for Policy project focuses on promoting the access and effective use of data and knowledge products to influence policy-making processes and outcomes. It contributes to evidence-led policy-making through data management services and capacity building in research data interpretation and usage, collaborating with civil society organizations and academics. According to Dr. Danku, data is required to address the fundamental bottlenecks affecting Ghana's agricultural sector.
It seems that policymakers tend to push policies that will promote their own political agenda. So if policies will not, even if policies will promote the national discourse but will not promote a political party agenda, then they tend to be de-emphasized. So the conclusion there is that we policymakers must engage a wider community of people in developing their policy, so those policies address the needs of the people rather than just the agenda of political parties. And then on the issue of food safety, we talked about the issue of how we've emphasized food security, the availability of food without the safety of those foods. So you can have food on the market, but those foods can be contaminated. So one of the things we are recommending is that it's, if we can provide testing kits, for example, in various markets, and Food and Drugs Board can do more routine checks of the safety of those foods on the market. DIRAP
seeks to address the challenges to data-driven and evidence-based policy advocacy by equipping both the players in the policy advocacy space and those that primarily generate the data and evidence.
Thanks so much for watching Business Live. I am Pius Kojo Baka. For more stories, log on to myjoyonline.com. Bye-bye.